The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, the polls have closed in Arizona. It's a primary night there. We're going to get to that in a moment. And some of the results will likely come at the end of this show. So you definitely want to stick with us because as soon as we get them, we will bring them to you. Meantime, Zohran Mamdani, the New York City mayor, who remember said that he's looking at his options to see whether they could actually execute an arrest warrant for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu if and when he came for the UN General Assembly in New York. And we all knew it was bogus, that there's no way that he would be able to have the authority to do that. Can you imagine mayors across the country saying they're going to execute some arrest warrant from an international criminal court that the U.S. doesn't even recognize? It was bogus. It was ridiculous. And now Zohran Mamdani is even admitting as such, but yet he continues to take a swipe at Benjamin Netanyahu. And in just the last few minutes, Zohran Mamdani released a video essentially saying we looked at our options and we maybe don't have the authority to do it. But boy, am I disappointed because boy, is Netanyahu the worst of the worst. Take a listen. Here is what Mamdani just released, and I can't wait to get your reaction tonight.
Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal, the architect of a horrific genocide against the Palestinian people. He is responsible for the killing of more than 73,000 people, for the maiming of tens of thousands of children as those who survive undergo amputation without anesthesia, for the targeting of neonatal hospitals and maternity care centers, denying newborns even the chance to live, for the countless people he starved as he blocked food and humanitarian aid from reaching them, for the gunning down of hundreds of aid workers and journalists. And just last month, the UN confirmed that Palestinian children continue to be deliberately targeted and killed by Israeli armed forces, more than 8 months after the so-called ceasefire. The list goes on and on, all as we, as Americans, pay for the bombs that do the killing. There is a reason the International Criminal Court issued a warrant for his arrest. As human beings, we have spent generations building a shared understanding that there are crimes so grave they offend all of humanity. Anyone with their eyes, with their heart, with their conscience, should recognize the devastation he has wrought and understand that he belongs before a court of law. As I've said, I agree with the ICC that Benjamin Netanyahu should be arrested and tried for his crimes, as I do for anyone else charged by the ICC. My administration has reviewed every avenue available under applicable law to determine whether New York City could execute the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant if Benjamin Netanyahu came here. It is clear that we do not have the independent legal authority to enforce this warrant. The federal government, however, does, and I call on them to join the ICC and execute this warrant. And I want to be equally clear. Benjamin Netanyahu is not welcome in New York City, nor is any other war criminal at large. While we cannot end the genocide on our own, we can decide whether our silence will become another weapon, and we can examine every tool we have to defend the humanity and dignity of all people. That is my commitment to you.
What a preposterous statement. What a ridiculous, arrogant, preposterous statement. This is from the Mamdani administration. Is he the mayor of Gaza or is he the mayor of New York City? I mean, truly, when I hear those statements, the things he said, oh, Israel's responsible for the genocide, that Netanyahu is the architect of it, responsible for the deaths of 73,000 people, targeting hospitals, gunning down journalists like they're like going after. Did he forget that like Hamas had all those tunnels beneath the hospital? Did he forget that some of the journalists that have been injured were actually cooperating and working with Hamas and were sort of fronts? I mean, this is really incredible stuff, and it's reprehensible, and it's shocking that it's from a mayor of any American city. I'm glad he's backing away, but maybe he just realized how preposterous and how ridiculous he looked and how over the line he was. But he still says the federal government has the authority, and I, Mayor Mamdani of a city in America, not the president of the United States, not a world leader. I call on the federal government to issue and honor that arrest warrant, and that Netanyahu is not welcome in New York. I mean, what a ridiculous, despicable statement. He never said that about Ahmadinejad. He never said it about in the past when Castro was in the United States. What about when Muammar Gaddafi of Libya was in the United States? He didn't seem to have a problem with that. And I haven't heard him critical of the Iranian terrorist regime. But yet Netanyahu is getting his ire, and he's saying he's responsible for 73,000 deaths. I mean, this is really reprehensible. Maybe as reprehensible as a wife liking a tweet, remember, celebrating October 7th and what Hamas did on October 7th. Maybe as reprehensible as some of the people that he has endorsed who celebrated on October 8th and were cheering with Hamas sympathizers. Maybe as reprehensible as Hassan Piker, who said that America deserved 9/11. That's the streamer who Mamdani hangs out with. I mean, his administration literally tried to meet with a representative from Iran without telling the State Department. And he didn't seem too upset with that individual when the word got out that they were planning to meet. He said, I didn't know. But he didn't really seem that upset by it. And that person, according to all reports, is still on staff. Maybe that person got a raise. I mean, this is really reprehensible. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. And take a listen. Here is Senator John Fetterman saying what he thinks of Zohran Mamdani.
Making these threats. He doesn't even have the authority to do this, I don't believe, to make an arrest like this.
Oh, he's a total clown. I mean, he has the authority to arrest Netanyahu any more than I would have the authority to arrest him in Washington, D.C. if he visited down in Washington, D.C. You're a mayor, dude. You know, pick up trash, fix some potholes, and really fix the homeless problem in your city, too. You know, you're way out of your league, and now this is irresponsible. But like I said, he's just a total clown. And it's just for clicks at this point. He knows that he has nothing actionable. Now,
and he does now realize somehow he's had some epiphany. Well, maybe it could be because even from a legal perspective, there were folks like Alan Dershowitz who were looking into maybe there could be some charges against Mamdani for crossing the line, whether it was on a federal or state level. Listen to this. We talked with Professor Dershowitz earlier today on Katz and Cosby. Professor, what do you make of this? Could there be some overreach by him, that there could be some penalty even for suggesting it?
We are looking into that, not only state violations, but federal violations.
Civil rights laws?
Yeah, by threatening a prime minister. The purpose is to keep him out of New York, to keep him away from the UN, which would be obviously to violate U.S. foreign policy. So we're looking into possible federal criminal prosecution, which I think the Trump administration would be very interested in pursuing if we could find it. And if anybody out there, lawyers, can help us look through the federal code and see whether or not this would violate federal anti-civil rights law. Conspiracy to violate the civil rights of an individual doesn't have to be a citizen of the United States. He can be somebody invited to the United States by either the Trump administration or by the United Nations. And of course, there is this state law that says you can't target people and tell the police to investigate them. By the way, you know, I had, as my research assistant, she helped me write a book, Jessie Tisch. And I haven't spoken to her about this, but I can't believe that she would actually enforce an order by the mayor to violate the law and to arrest somebody who's here under the protection of an American treaty and American law. So, you know, he's just blowing air, but he's doing it in a way that could backfire on him and could result in him being in violation of criminal law. The other thing, of course, is it would be really easy for us to do, and we're exploring this now, to get an injunction, a federal injunction against Mamdani having the federal court say you cannot arrest the prime minister of Israel because you, the mayor, have no authority to interfere with the United Nations. And by the way, how many war criminals have spoken at the United Nations? I was there when Ahmadinejad spoke. He was a war criminal. Virtually every Iranian who has ever spoken at the UN has been guilty of war crimes. And, of course, many in other countries, in China and Sudan and you name it, Russia, have been guilty of war crimes, and none of them has ever been threatened with arrest. The only person threatened with arrest is the Jewish prime minister of Israel. Look, Mamdani and his wife are both virulent anti-Semites. Yes, anti-Semites. They do not like Jews. They don't like the Jewish nation. Now, of course, they're going to say, oh, but we like Brad Lander, and we have a few Jews. Hitler had a few Jews he liked, too. Mussolini had a few Jews he liked. Some of my best friends are Jews is the first statement an anti-Semite makes. Mamdani is an anti-Semite. His wife is an anti-Semite. The mayor of New York, the city with the largest Jewish population outside of Tel Aviv, is a virulent anti-Semite, and his focusing on the prime minister of Israel to the exclusion of every other prime minister is a sign of international anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism doesn't only have to be directed at an individual. It can be directed at the only nation state of the Jewish people in the world. That's international anti-Semitism, and he's guilty of that.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe there still might be some of these federal charges or other things passed around him. Or maybe some attorney said, you know what, Zohran, maybe you got to back off. Let's go to Jeff in Manhattan, line 3. Jeff, what are your thoughts tonight here on the Rita Cosby Show? Hey, Jeff, call back. Can you hear us?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, hurry up, Jeff.
Oh, I'm going to say I have 2 quick points. Mamdani has proven without a doubt that he is either a moron or a liar, and he has to be one or the other, because throughout the campaign, he promised he was going to arrest Netanyahu. How he made that promise? He either was a fool and a moron to make a promise he didn't know if he could make, that he could keep, or he was a liar to make a promise that he knew he couldn't keep. He's one or the other. And finally, as the mayor of New York that has to protect its citizens, I heard that remark, that speech he made that you played. How much anti-Semitism and attacks on Jews are there going to be as a direct result of what he just released?
Well, first off, I agree with you. He's either, is so out of his league, or he knows, just like everything else, like the free buses and a lot of these things that he says he's going to do that he knows he can't do, that he knows it's impossible. That he's just sort of throwing these pie in the skies, playing to his base. And I agree with you. When I heard that language, that he really took it to Mamdani to Netanyahu, saying 73,000 people have been killed. You're responsible. You're a war criminal. You're gunning down people like haphazard. It is ridiculous.
He's a genocide.
It is. You're right. But he's not even just. He's not even, genocide is obviously a horrible crime to be accused of, but he's making it sound like Israeli troops at Netanyahu's direction are purposely shooting and killing journalists, killing people in hospitals randomly just for the fun of it. And that's a preposterous comment.
It was the Hamas. I'm sorry, Rita. It was the Hamas terrorists that stole the food. And you pointed out the tunnels. But again, in the most basic terms, he said something. He was going to arrest Netanyahu. Either he knew he couldn't do it, or he's a liar, and he's a liar, or he didn't know he couldn't do it, and he's a fool. But he's got to be one or the other, and probably both.
Right. And by the way, I agree. There's a lot of layers to this. I think you hit it right on the head, Jeff. There are a lot of layers to this. And he clearly had to know it's a preposterous statement. And I wonder if he backed away in this message, even though he didn't back away on trashing Netanyahu, as you said, because he is inspiring people to still kind of, feel complete hatred towards Netanyahu. There's no doubt that he's sort of playing again to his base and riling up people that are already riled up. But I agree. He had to have known. So it's a preposterous. I feel like anybody who had like even a first grade civics class would be able to say, obviously a local mayor in any city in New York, let alone the biggest city in America, New York City, would know the difference. Obviously, federal authority and having somebody come to the UN, they have diplomatic immunity. There's so many issues here. So you're right. You have to wonder. And also, I wonder why he caved so quick. Was he worried that maybe he could be facing, like what Dershowitz said, potential charges of civil rights violations or other things? Jeff, do me a favor. I want you to hold on because I want you to think about why you think he suddenly reversed so quickly. Why now? I'm going to go to a break and we'll talk right after the break. 1-800-848-9222.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
So you guys just heard it with me. Mamdani backing away, saying he doesn't have the authority to arrest Netanyahu. Why is he saying it now? Jeff was so aptly saying from Manhattan that he was pitching it all over the campaign trail. And now suddenly he seems to be backing away, but still calling Netanyahu a horrible war criminal. Let's go back to Jeff in Manhattan. Jeff, why do you think he's doing it now? Why do you think he quickly kind of flip-flopped a little bit on whether they have the authority or not?
I can't answer that, but if I could, if I was in his head and I thought like he did, I'd be going straight to a psychiatrist. But the thing I would say about him is that, like you just said about the campaign, either he was lying when he said that and other things during the campaign, or he's a complete fool and said he would do things like that and the supermarket and other things that he had no idea that he couldn't do. But even more importantly, that is the statement that you played at the beginning of your show is the most outrageous and reckless statement I have ever heard by an elected official in this country say.
Yeah, I agree, because you're right. He's riling up the people saying this person is a killer. This person is a murderer. He is riling up people to hate and being provocative against Netanyahu.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Dallas, Texas, where police officer Corporal Joshua Swisher rescued a driver who was trapped in a burning car. And he says he was just at the right place at the right time. The corporal saying he was responding to a traffic stop along the state highway when he got a call about a vehicle with heavy smoke pouring from it. So get this, at that moment, a smoking vehicle happened to pass by Swisher on the highway, where he immediately began following that vehicle and started directing the driver of the car to the shoulder. The car then suddenly burst into flames. The officer said he was thinking, how am I going to get this driver out of the car? And from there, I put my gloves on. Camera footage shows thick black smoke billowing from the car's windows with the driver still trapped inside. And the corporal recalled, I couldn't see inside the vehicle because of the amount of smoke that was pouring out. Because he couldn't open the car door, he decided to break the car window with his fist in order to pull the driver out to safety. He said, when the window shattered, that was a little bit of a relief for me because I knew I had an exit point at that time. And then you could see through body cam footage, the officer dragging the driver out and away from the car just as the vehicle became fully engulfed in flames, literally seconds later. Now, according to the corporal, the driver was the only person in the car. He was very shaken, and also unsteady, needless to say, but thankfully to be alive, thanks to the fast action of Corporal Swisher and his life-saving actions that day. Again, he said, it's not every day that something like this happens, but I was just glad to be there at the right place, right time, and to be able to save this man. Talk about luck and timing and determination from our men and women in blue. Well, I had to play this for you guys tonight. Don Lemon, remember the guy who was in the church in Minnesota, just happened to be there with the protesters when they burst into that service. Well, he had another line. You have to hear this. He did an interview where he said that people have been asking him whether he will run for president. And he said he can't rule it out. That boy would be interesting. But he also took a lot of swipes at MAGA. Listen to how he equates MAGA. Take a listen.
You think that once Donald Trump is gone, it's the end of MAGA? I don't know if it's the end of that sort of attitude. I mean, the MAGA is the closest thing to the modern version of a Nazi party. This is America's version. It's the closest thing without the Holocaust and all that stuff. That sort of mindset. That's what MAGA is, because most intelligent people, logical people, when they get new information, and if that information is negative or not factual, then they change their minds. They go, oh, well, I wish I had known better. And now that I have this information, then I can readjust. No matter what no matter how many facts and how much information you give them about this presidency, about the policies, they don't change their minds, because they're really not voting for the price of eggs. They're voting for white supremacy. They're voting for power. They're voting to have a preeminent voice. They're afraid they've been co-opted by many people in the Republican Party and Donald Trump to think that their failures are due to something else, the other, the black person, the woman, the Latino, the immigrant, the migrant. That person is taking your job. That person is the reason that you don't have the financial or career success that you think that you should have. It's because of them. We want to take our country back. That's what MAGA is.
What a remarkable statement. Can you imagine? Don Lemon for president. That's what he was also saying. That's a classic. And in the middle of all this, there's a lot of big stories tonight. And by the way, I hope to be reading some of your tweets, guys. At Rita Cosby, send me your comments, because I take your calls, I read your tweets. I love to hear from you on so many different levels. The other big story a lot of people are talking about is the New Jersey governor, Mikey Sherrill. Remember, who ran as a moderate, and the day she took over, she became a Trump derangement syndrome Democrat. And now, remember how Democrats last week, when President Trump came out with his speech and said, yeah, there were people that were on the voter rolls that were non-citizens. This shouldn't have happened. And what happened? You know, it didn't even get covered, remember, by some networks. It didn't get covered by ABC or NBC, CNN, remember? They dipped out. They didn't cover it. So a lot of people were saying, oh, this is not true. There's definitely no evidence of this. This is ridiculous. This is completely improper. It's this, it's that. They were just all over the place and saying it's preposterous. Well, guess what happened? New Jersey's governor, Democrat, and by the way, the one before her, also, of course, a Democrat as well, Phil Murphy. Well, this current one, Mikey Sherrill, coming out and saying there seemed to have been some problem with the software in New Jersey. And that created a glitch, some sort of error. And she said, gosh, you know, somehow 6,600 immigrants were wrongly added to the Garden State's voter rolls. And she says about 400 non-citizens actually voted, illegally cast their ballots in New Jersey since 2023 election. So that was a Democratic governor that was under Phil Murphy. And you also wonder, is she coming out now because she knew it was going to be discovered by maybe the Trump administration and she's trying to kind of get ahead of it? But doesn't that kind of destroy the Democrats' argument that there's no evidence of any illegals that are on voter rolls? There's no evidence that any of them cast their vote. It's 100 that they say cast their vote, and again, 6,600 that registered to vote. And remember, and sometimes in these close elections, sometimes it comes down to a single digits. A lot of times it comes to within 100 votes. I kind of wonder which way these people would vote. I don't have to guess. I think we all know which direction they would vote. But why is she kind of trying to come out with it preemptively? It's kind of interesting. Is she doing it because, again, she knew that they were going to go after her for it if she didn't reveal it. Or were they aware of it? Or is somebody else in the administration aware of it? And she didn't want that to come out that they were aware of it. Who knows what the reason is, but I find it interesting that she just suddenly, quote, on her own decided to announce this information. And it certainly gives fuel to the fire of what President Trump was saying about non-citizens voting in various states across America. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And that's what's going on. That's the minimum that seems to be going on in New Jersey. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Judith in Brooklyn on line 3. Go ahead, Judith. Your thoughts tonight.
Hi, Rita. Thank you. Two thoughts, sort of. Number one, I really feel Israel should sue this lying, insightful Mamdani, who happens to have a father who advocates for suicide bombers against civilians, Israeli civilians on buses and stores, okay? That's just fine with him, you know? But also, I wish, Rita, that you could get this guy on your show. His name is Judge Roy K. Altman. He just came out with a book called Israel on Trial. He's been a judge for 7 years before the prosecutor, and after October 7, it bothered him a lot that October 8, the reaction was so ridiculous with these pro-Hamas people when it was the other way around. The genocide was against Israel. It was terrible. So he did all this research, and in his book, let me just highlight one thing. He answers 6 questions that accuse Israel and proves legally, this is from a legal standpoint, but very legally, very easy to read, though, how genocide is, they absolutely did not commit genocide. He himself went to the military headquarters in Israel, and they proved to him that they canceled hundreds of attacks. They showed him, black on white, hundreds of attacks they canceled due to civilian casualty concerns. All right? So then they didn't commit genocide. All they do, Israel, is try to survive, and they get attacked. They're surrounded by everyone, and they're the ones that are genocidal. The lies that he says, where he gets these numbers and whatever, are just so insightful. They need to sue him. And the funny part is, Hamas was the one that was holding back the food. Israel was sending so much food, and it was Hamas that was like holding back to their own people for propaganda,
right?
And for all these lies.
Right. They were stealing it. They were selling the food. There were reports, too, that they were selling it to get weapons in. And it's just like, it reminds me, I brought up the hospital example, too, Judith, because the way you heard him bring up, that Israel's like shooting up hospitals, like they're like Rambo suddenly, going over to these hospitals. And to me, that's such a preposterous statement. Because we know that there were these tunnels underneath the hospitals. And I also brought up, that there were a number of journalists, quote journalists, I put them in air quotes, that somehow were cooperating, remember, and helping Hamas. And some of them actually happened to be there in the villages that got slaughtered and filming it and went back with Hamas. That's a kind of different kind of journalist than the kind I'm used to. And when I hear all these details, Judith, you're right. You use a very important word, insightful, because it is. Because not only is he saying, I'm backing away, and I do have to wonder why he's backing away now so quickly, because he rode on this into the campaign trail. He doubled down even yesterday when he was asked about it after the New York Times interview. He didn't back away from it yesterday. So something happened between yesterday and today where he realized, and maybe part of it's that he worried he could be in a slippery slope, that he looked ridiculous, that there could be some sort of charges against him for overstepping his bound and threatening U.S. foreign policy. Who knows? But what do you make of the timing that he suddenly flipped in the last less than 24 hours? I mean, that's an interesting, this timing is very unusual to me.
The timing, I don't know about the timing, but he knows he has no legs to stand on. He's a big liar.
But the point is, Judith, he knew that all along. He'd been saying that on the campaign trail. I find it hard to believe that he's that stupid, that he didn't think that he actually would have thought he had the authority. And then he had that discussion with the New York Times saying, we're really looking into this. We're digging into it. I mean, it takes a lot. I'm not an attorney, but it would take me 2 seconds to realize you can't do it. I mean, it's a constitutional. I mean, it's very clear who has jurisdiction and who doesn't. So any attorney who was advising him would be able to tell him that in 5 seconds. So why was he pushing? And then suddenly tonight, and this last minute message, and he doesn't do it in a news conference. He had reporters in front of him yesterday. He stood his ground and doubled, triple down. But yet tonight, suddenly, he kind of puts out this video that I just played for you guys. It literally just came out. And in it, he also still trashes Netanyahu being insightful against him. I agree with you on that. But I find it interesting that the timing, like what happened to him where somebody said, you better change what you've been saying for the last, year almost for some reason. That's what I'm saying, because there's some reason, the timing. Otherwise, why is he saying something different today than he said yesterday?
Well, Rita, maybe Israel is looking into suing him. Maybe he's being, he needs. They really have to do something about him because he's lying through his teeth. Everything he's saying is just lies, outrageous lies. It's the exact opposite. It's amazing how they don't say one word about what Hamas did to Israel, and they started this whole thing October 7. And I have to tell you something. Iran is the mastermind of all this, okay? And he's very much with Iran. Remember, he wants to discuss. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing, this guy Mamdani. He's very dangerous, very dangerous.
Yeah, although it's interesting, Judith, I don't think he's necessarily in sheep's clothing anymore. I agree. I think he's sort of a wolf in a blatant wolf's clothing. Like he's not sort of hiding anymore. He just kind of says it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? He is the head of the DSA. And if you look at the DSA, these are revolutionaries. They need to be knocked out of here, this DSA group of people. They want to completely do away with the American Constitution, do away with the presidency, do away with the Senate, do away with prisons, do away with the police, do away with ICE. They want to these are Islamist Marxists banded together, and they are anti-American, and they have they are communists and Islamists. They want to change this whole country into a whole different country, okay, where you wouldn't recognize it. It is really scary. We are at war in this country. We are at war, and the DSA is the problem. They are the problem. They are illegal. They should be banned. They are a threat to our democracy.
I agree. Hey, Judith, I want you to hear this because I thought this was really stunning. Hassan Piker, friend of Zohran Mamdani, did a speech recently, and this is what he said about Mao Zedong. Listen to this.
I got stopped by a cop who thought I was making fun of Mao Zedong, which I never would and never will. Mao Zedong is one of the great leaders of this world, okay? A man who changed the entire universe, the entire planet, okay? For real, yes. I mean, there was a lot of excesses, let's be real, but the People's Republic of China would not exist without Mao Zedong.
I mean, praising Mao Zedong. And then here, Judith, here he is. He's speaking at the College Democrats of America convention, all these young people. And he had a message for establishment Democrats. Listen to this guy. If you think that they want to get along with, quote, more common sense Democrats, that ain't the case. Just like you said, they're coming and they don't care what anybody thinks, which is why I think it's the wolves in wolf's clothing. But here is Hassan Piker not holding back. And does this sound like a guy who wants to work with all sides?
The Democrats who compromise, who conciliate, and who betray us. No more to the Democrats who will collaborate and cooperate with the fascists, who will fund ICE, who will fund Israel, who will help poison the planet, who will stiff workers and help bosses. We don't need those Democrats anymore. We are coming. We are on boss. We're on bot. We're unbound. And we will become undeniable.
I mean, Judith, when you hear that guy's getting everybody riled up. Real quick reaction.
Yeah, well, you know what? I want that passion on the other side. I want Republicans to sound just like that and be passionate and come come forth with common sense and American values, okay? And this Pica guy, go back to Turkey and go under a rock where you came out of, okay? You know what he said? He didn't care this much that the women that were raped and attacked and mutilated in Israel and killed that way, he didn't care this much about it. This is who he is. He's an animal. He's
I agree.
Monster.
I agree. I remember when he was just like, yeah, so what if that happened? I mean, it's shocking. And this is who Mamdani is hanging around with. This is who a number of them are hanging around with. And that speaks volumes. Judith, thank you very much. Everybody, we're going to continue your calls after the break. 1-800-848-9222. And you're listening to The Rita Cosby Show.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
And coming up, we should be getting some results in the next hour from the Arizona primaries. We'll also kind of talk about the significance of it because they are trying to turn, especially the governor's seat there, from blue, Katie Hobbs, to red. And we'll find out if Congressman Andy Biggs, who we've had here on the show, let's see if he can pull it out. It is a big Republican primary. He's such a great guy. That will be an interesting race if it turns out to be him against Katie Hobbs. And also, we'll be talking more about Zohran Mamdani and this craziness of what's happened, him putting out a statement just a little bit ago. So why did he flip and flop on saying he's going to go after Netanyahu? He still says he hopes he gets arrested, that the feds, he's going to call on the federal authorities to step in. Wow. Give me a break. Let's go to Larry in Brooklyn, line 4. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, Rita, I'm not so sure I understand your question about why he made a turnabout. There was a guy named Dershowitz who came on the air today.
Yeah, and I just played a clip from him.
I mean, he threatened all kinds of federal indictments.
Right.
I'm not sure why Dershowitz tipped him off like he did, but what it seems Mamdani did was called renunciation. He renounced the crime, and now he cannot be indicted anymore. So what's the mystery of why he did it? Dershowitz came out with every threat of every kind of infraction you could possibly...
So you think he caved because he got scared of Dershowitz and other legal work? See, I don't think so, Larry. I mean, everybody's been saying he did not have jurisdiction. But you think what, he's a bok chicken?
Everybody's saying that Mamdani doesn't have jurisdiction, but when he heard it from the legal eagle himself, then he got scared. What do you think?
You know what? I think there's something else to the story. Maybe he did realize that maybe not just Dershowitz, because Dershowitz is brilliant, but maybe he realized maybe he overstepped his bounds.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?